Hello, I'm Maestro Giunta, the music director and conductor of the Des Moines Symphony, welcoming you to today's DMSO Listening Room, a part of the DMSO at Home series of videos, self-produced by our musicians from their homes to yours. Today I'm delighted to speak about our first Masterworks program of the 84th season of the Des Moines Symphony. As you know, our 83rd season was planned to celebrate the 250th anniversary of Beethoven's birth. But due to the pandemic, we pivoted to 8 online concerts that continued to serve not only our loyal Central Iowa audience, but some first-time local music lovers, as well as people living throughout the world. It was a hugely successful opportunity for us and speaks highly of how important it was and is to all of us at the Des Moines Symphony to continue to provide performances of great classical music for you, our audiences, in spite of the challenges of the pandemic. But that's all behind us now, and it's time to get back to live in-person concerts. And what a celebration this is going to be. It has been 18 months, specifically 581 days, since we last performed for a live audience in the Civic Center. We'll begin this unprecedented comeback with music by living American composer John Corigliano. In John's own words, he explains that the premise of his Promenade Overture took place when he was a child and attended a performance of Haydn's Farewell Symphony. The work often programmed at the conclusion of concerts because during the final movement, the musicians are asked to gradually exit the stage one by one, leaving only 2 violinists to finish the symphony on a bare stage. Now, since overtures usually begin concerts, a reverse of this procedure, the entrance of the orchestra while playing, became both an interesting idea and compositional challenge. Offstage brass announced the beginning of the work with trumpets playing the last 5 measures of the Haydn Farewell Symphony, but backwards, producing the clamor of a fanfare announcing the promenade of performers, which starts with a piccolo and ends with a tuba in a very surprising way. The piece contains a variety of motives that eventually combine to form a beautiful and lyric melody that brings the entire work to a final climax. The piece was commissioned by the Boston Symphony to honor its 100th anniversary. The world premiere took place on July 10, 1981, in Symphony Hall in Boston, performed by the Boston Pops, conducted by John Williams. Joining us for his debut with the Des Moines Symphony is Awadagin Pratt, one of the finest pianists playing on the circuit today. He has performed with every major orchestra in the United States and has a fine reputation for bringing his own unique and individual interpretations to whatever he performs. He is also a renowned teacher. Awadagin will perform the Florence Piano Concerto, a piece written in 1933 and performed 1 year later in Chicago. It has been completely neglected until recently. Price was an American classical composer, pianist, and organist and teacher. She was the first Black woman to be recognized as a symphonic composer and the first to have a composition played by a major symphony orchestra. She lived from 1899 to 1953. She attended the New England Conservatory of Music and studied with George Chadwick, who encouraged her to compose and use familiar spirituals in her music and arrangements. She eventually settled in Chicago. The piano concerto is in 1 movement, but with 3 contrasting sections, much like the Liszt concertos. The first movement is strong and bold, with an extended cadenza, followed by lyricism with a sense of urgency and forward motion. The slow section is gorgeous, nostalgic, and yearns for better days. And the finale, a brisk and joyful juba dance, a folk dance that was popular in the Civil War days and preceded the rag. And finally, what better way to begin a Beethoven anniversary season than a performance of his immortal 5th Symphony. I've conducted this piece many times and spent hundreds of hours preparing for those performances. And after all this, I'm still amazed and fascinated by Beethoven's genius. His music expressed fear, tragedy, awe, horror, nostalgia, yearning, majesty, pain, nature, and triumph like none other. This wide range of emotion is exactly what came to define Romanticism in music. His talent and legacy affected every composer that followed him, including Schumann, Brahms, Mahler, Shostakovich, Prokofiev, Tchaikovsky, Karl Orff, Stravinsky, and many, many others. And his 9 symphonies continue to be the standard bearer for all composers. His 5th symphony demonstrates victory over conflict, triumph over adversity. He extended the range of the orchestra by being the first to use piccolo in an orchestra. He also added trombones for the unique strength and color. The first movement is famous for its 4-note motive, da-da-da-da, and its stunning virtuosity. Each motive seems to be trying to catch up to the next, leaving one breathless at the end. The slow movement is a double variation with 2 themes and a series of variations on each to follow. The third movement, a decisive scherzo, which Beethoven invented. Rather than the 3/4 stately dance of Mozart and Haydn's day, Beethoven greatly increased the tempo, but still in 3/4 time, but counted in 1 rather than 3. He also uses the original 4-note motive in a different way, but still as dramatic and effective as the first movement. And then something also new and shocking, a quiet and lengthy transition using the 4-note motive, played in a distance on the timpani with a line that seems to have trouble finding its way, but once it does, carries us to the triumphant march, a finale in C major that revels in jubilant brass choir majesty. It's a stunning and optimistic way to end a symphony with great joy and accomplishment. Great art compels us to discover and rediscover the artist's intentions. Beethoven's music is the pinnacle of greatness that continues to stretch all of our imaginations and challenge us in ways we never thought possible. It appeals to us like a great novel or movie that we read or watch over and over again, constantly discovering and rediscovering things that we previously missed. After Beethoven became famous in Vienna, he attended a social occasion after a concert where one of his symphonies had been performed. A wealthy patron with a famous last name asked him a question that he felt unworthy of an answer, and replied, "My dear, there will be many who follow you with your last name, but there will only be one Beethoven." Prophetic words indeed. That's all for today's Listening Room. See you next time, and thanks for watching.